there, lovely, and thank you so much for joining me today on today's edition of the Aloe Podcast Show. In today's edition, we are going to talk about how to. So, especially on our how to segment, we talk about how to do certain things in relation with podcast. And today, we are going to talk about how to write a script for your podcast guest. Just stay tuned and stay. Okay, and now we are back. For you to write a script for a podcast, yes, there are some certain things you need to learn. The certain things you need to learn are quite basic. So what I'm going to say is that it's good for you to write your script in order because it helps you to be confident when you are talking to your guests. So if there's anyone watching or listening, the person wouldn't feel bored at the point and think that what you're writing didn't feel well prepared. Whenever you watch a show and you look at the guest and the host, you realize that whatever that they're talking about, there's some breakages. One person doesn't know what to say or how to answer the question. It is quite basically simple because there was no enough preparation towards it. And I'm going to teach you how to prepare yourself for a show on your podcast, especially when you're going to include a guest. Stick and stay. Hi, yes, and thank you for staying with me. Right now, I'm going to tell you the things you need to do to write a script for your podcast guest. The first thing you need to do is that you brainstorm a whole lot of questions down. Brainstorming a lot of questions doesn't come easy, of course. This is the stage you do a lot of research into the kind of question you want to have. So in case you're talking about, like, for example, if you're talking about how to boost tourism in some specific area in your country or something, and you bring an expert or you're going to bring an expert onto the show, it is best you brainstorm a whole lot of ideas about the question. So this is where you do a lot of research into the background of your guest. So it helps you do your introduction into the kind of occupation your guest is into or into the industry that your guest works. So you do a whole lot of research. You segment your questions according to all of these. And this is the stage where you brainstorm enough that you are able to segment them into introduction, the body, and also the conclusion. Because when you do that, it becomes easier for all of you that are going to be in the production of the podcast to feel well prepared, because you need to feel confident whilst you're asking the questions. The interviewer needs to feel confident. The interviewee also need to feel like, well, this is well prepared. I need to get answers to all of these. That's why you need to send a script ahead of time to the guest to preview all these questions and find suitable responses for them before they head on to the main show. Well, unless if it's a live show, of course. But secondly, you also need to make sure that you bring a whole lot of people to help you. If you can't do it alone, of course. If you're going to do it alone, then please try to research, because anytime you see something in relation to your topic on the internet, it can be carved into a question. Okay? Or you bring friends on board, relatives, make use of them to help you brainstorm a whole lot of questions so that you can segment them into the body, into the introduction, the body, and also the conclusion. All right, so I have some few basic steps you need to follow just to help you carve or help you brainstorm the questions. Watch this. With the general guidelines I had to put together for you watching and you listening is to help you know how to brainstorm the questions. So the first point is to brainstorm your interview questions. But then, how do you brainstorm the questions is what I'm going to help you with. And those are the guidelines. So 1, try to make your questions brief. Making your questions brief and simple for your guest is the simplest thing for you to do in appreciation to your guest. Try not to confuse your guest. Just try to make your questions a bit simple for your guest to understand and follow. Because if your guest understands and follows, it makes the conversation a bit smoother and easier. Secondly, try to ask open-ended questions. So the second guideline is ask open-ended questions. Asking open-ended questions means that when it comes to an interview, it has a different definition. It only means that you're asking brief and short questions, but you require or expect a long response, So the objective of you asking open-ended questions is to help your guest understand the question and also answer in a long responsively manner. So what I mean is that, example, if I am an author and you're asking me a question and you ask me, are you an author? I'm going to say yes. So it's best you avoid yes or no or just one response answer. But if you ask me a question like, why did you become an author? I mean, it has to boil down to another thing. So I need to explain why I became an author, which makes the question, which is a short question, why you became an author, require a very long response to it. So that is the objective of a podcast, that you, the host, asks simple and brief questions, but make sure that your guest answers with a long response or feedback. So for you to understand this, try to go home with 1H and 4Ws. So what do I mean by the 1H? So 1H is the how, 4Ws is why, where, what, and when. Okay, of course you can add phrases like describe or tell me. It also helps you to let the guest answer in a very long and responsive manner. Hi, so the second point is to talk about asking your guest neutral questions. Asking neutral questions is the most reliable thing to do because it helps distinguishes your feelings from what your personal opinions of the questions are to what the guest is about to say in relation to the question. So if you ask your guest some sort of question, it distinguishes your feelings or your thoughts or your definitions or concerns about the question away from what the guest is going to say. This is the stage where the guest also feels safe, feels concerned, and it does not feel pressured at all to answer your question in a certain manner because you have some sort of opinions, or you, the person asking the question, have some sort of reserved questions or opinions to the question at all. So this is the stage where you need to align your guest level of experience to the question you're going to ask the guest. So, example, if your guest is experienced in management, it is just advisable to link the person's level of or skill in management to the question. So, for example, if you should ask your guest, with your level of experience in management, what are your concerns about X, Y, Z? It becomes easier for the guest to feel relaxed, calm, and also answer the questions based on the person's level of experience or wherever the person has acquired his or her experience from. It could be from home or work or school or just years of accumulation of working in a specific industry. So it becomes easier for your guests to do that. Finally, also try to ask your questions in a chronological manner. Studies and research have shown that people that ask questions in a chronological manner are expected to receive their feedbacks in an appropriate manner. So what you do is that whilst you are breaking down and writing down your questions, it should be in a chronological manner. What I mean is that your first question asked should be linked or have a certain form of link to the second question that's supposed to be asked. So the two questions don't seem too far apart, but they are together and it makes the conversation a bit smoother and easier. So let's go to the third point. The third point is to send the script ahead of time to your guest or narrator. What this simply means is that it helps your narrator or the guest get well prepared and feels calm, goes through your questions one by one. But in case you are not sure, you think you might be asking off the book or off the record questions, but they're all going to be in line with what you have in the script, it is cool. It is okay to alert your guest ahead of time that though these questions are in the script, you might probably ask off-board questions whenever a question pops up in your mind, but it's going to be in relation to the topic, which is also cool because your guest has a broader view and understanding of what kind of questions you're going to ask. Okay, so it becomes very easier. This is the stage where it also makes the guest go into his stuff and brings out artifact photos, videos to support the kind of conversations you're going to have. So if you're going to talk about the biography of a certain rich man, it helps him to also dig up his past, how he was poor in the past, how he had to struggle to get to where he is. It becomes easier and the interview goes on smoothly. So this is one of the important reasons why you need to send the script ahead to your script, your narrator or guest ahead of time, so that they can pull out artifacts, photos, videos, some form of certificate or anything just to back the conversation of the interview, and it becomes very smoother and everyone enjoys. Let's jump to the fourth point. This is the fourth point. So this is the fourth point. The fourth point, you talk about assembling all your questions into one script. All right. So assembling all your questions into one script means that you need to divide the entire questions into three different parts. We have the introduction, we have the middle part, and also which is the body, and we also have the conclusion. So let's talk about the introduction. Okay, the introduction is where you talk about background information about your guest in relation to the topic. This is where you let people understand the idea of the topic you're going to talk about. This is where you let your guest throw more light into the introduction of the topic, and this is where your guest feels relaxed and understands the whole questions you're going to give. Besides, he already has a fair idea of what you are going to ask him, right? Yeah. So let's go to the second point. Sorry. Let's go to the second point. The second point is the body. The body is where the objective of the conversation you're having with your guest is achieved. All right? The objective of the conversation you're going to have with your guest should be achieved in the body part of the entire script. So this is where probably you might ask questions that will let your guest break a sweat. All right, this is where your guest has to think a little bit deeper. This is where your guest has to bring some examples, case studies, photographs, what have you, to make the conversation interesting. He or she can bring examples just to make the conversation interesting. So this is the part where your guest feels a little bit intense, and also you, the host, make sure that your guest answers the questions as you like. Remember, you're asking open-ended questions. They are not closed, all right? You're asking open-ended questions. So your guest has to talk more whilst you ask less questions. And you make the conversation a bit interesting by laughing, chipping in with a little bit of a humor to make the conversation interesting. Finally, the third point is the conclusion. So with the conclusion, it's quite basic, simple. This is the stage that I call the thought session. All right. So this is where I would preferably ask my guest what are their thoughts on certain things in relation to the topic we spoke about. This is the stage where I would also let my guest summarize all the good points he or she gave us during the body and introduction segment of the show. Perhaps someone might just jump into your show into the ending part, or the beginning, or into the middle part. The ending part becomes easier for the person to follow whatever you said from the beginning to the end. So you let your guest or host draw the attention of the guest to give a summarized statement about this whole thing. This is where I call the takeaway point. So when people watch the show, at the ending point, your guest is able to summarize all that he or she said in simple sentences, so that people can take away for you to help other people. So this is how to write a script for your podcast guest. I just hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to smash the like button. Don't forget to also smash the subscription button and the bell notification beside it. Make sure you smash on it so that you can follow me anytime I post any new content on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, or anywhere at all. Just follow me anywhere. So my social media handles are: on YouTube is the Outlaw Podcast Show. On Instagram is Outlaw Podcast. Okay. On Facebook it's Selassie Kwame. And also on all audio platforms out there, you can find the links or the description of the shows on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, on all the audio platforms there. Okay, thank you for enjoying the show, and stay tuned. I'll be giving you more information. And my next topic, I'm going to talk about. What should I talk about? What should I talk about? I'm going to talk about how to make money off podcasting. All right, how do I make my money? I'm going to share it with you so that you can also start making some interesting. Have a good day. Goodbye. Bye bye.